Hey guys, Infidel1258 here. Today I want to talk with you about the Heloise the Hollow auction. I want to give you a price prediction on where I think this card is going to go and the interest that our community is going to bring to it. And I want to explain the high price tag that I think it will carry. And so if that sounds interesting, I invite you to stick around. This is a clip from recent live events. So if you watch the full live, you probably already heard this, but this is distilled and edited down to really let the community know where I think the value lies with this amazing card. So if that sounds interesting, stick around. Let's get into it. The auction will show how many whales we have. Do you have 100 people that will spend 1,000 plus? I think you're right, Gathering. And Bolt says you'll be surprised. I actually think there'll be a surprise as well, Bolts. But I think the surprise will be in that the data isn't as clear as Gathering is alluding to. Gathering implies that we can determine how many whales we have based on how many sell for 1,000 plus. I think that's an interesting metric and it's a worthwhile measuring stick, but we have to also remember that there's a confounding variable, like a complicating thing that could make that data less reliable. What do I mean? Well, if we have 200 people that are whales and that want to spend $1,000 on a card, now the price isn't $1,000. Do you see what I mean? If there's 100 units possible, in fact, if there's 95 regular foil Heloise the Hollow cards, and there's an interest of 190 whales, now we understand, and they're all willing to pay $1,000. Okay, well, $1,000 isn't the price. That's how supply and demand works. If there are twice as many buyers as there are sellers, and the price was theoretically 1,000, now the price is 1,200. Now, do we still have 180 or 190 people that want to buy it for 1,200? Okay, well, the price isn't 1,200. Do you see what I mean? The price will go up and up and up until we start to drop away at some of those quote unquote whales that are interested. And so I actually think if we see more than $1,000, if we see less than $1,000, what that tells me on average per regular foil, less than $1,000 tells me that there's probably in the neighborhood of 50 to 75 deeply interested people with money to throw around. Hundreds of dollars, a few $1,000. I think we're going to prove that that will not be so. I think there'll be more than that. I think if you get in that 100 range, $1,000 to me for that card with its functionality, with its perceived impact, with its recognized scarcity, to me actually seems logical. You might disagree. You might say, no, I don't see it having that great of an impact on the meta. And the utility has to be understood. If we agree that the utility is significant, that the card is perhaps even overpowered, then we have to understand that $1,000 threshold puts it in sort of that price range of the past promo sales. People threw around that kind of money to get access to Night Stalker and Delia, or the cards before that. $100,000 was what they spent. And so I'm saying if we spend less than that on this card, it reflects a lack of utility or a lack of whales. And so my view would be we're actually going to see that price, that 1,000-ish range to me is like we probably have 100 people that really want it. Versus if we start seeing at $1,500 per unit or $1,200 per unit or even more than that per unit on the regular foil, that tells me there's probably 200 people chasing, 400 people chasing after it. So it will reveal something. He's right, but we have to pull on the data a bit more, recognizing that the general consensus around the card's utility is part of that conversation, as well as if there are too many buyers, the price can move away from 1,000 in a way that doesn't tell you that there are, it's more complicated is all I'm saying. It's going to be fun to watch. Whether it sells for 1,000, whether it sells for less, whether it sells for more, it's going to be fun to watch. The auction house opens its doors. Let's go check out the auction house. I saw it yesterday briefly, but I want to see it more clearly. Auction, there it is. So 7 days, 1 hour, bidding starts. Yeah, this card looks, I think I'm right about the price points. I think this is going to be 1,000 plus on average because I think the card is amazing. I think the impact will be significant. And I think the community of whales is bigger than 100. And the other piece that I didn't fully finish my thought on there when I was talking about that earlier is it doesn't even matter if there's just 100 whales, because not every whale wants one. Some whales will want two. And so that radically transforms the consideration. If there are 100 whales and they each want two, same problem as if you have 200 whales that each want one. Yeah, exactly. One whale could buy the whole lot. Like if they all sell and they sell for 1,000, that's a success. In my mind, that's like the marker of success. It would translate to something like $120,000 to $150,000 being spent on this card, based on peg fiat, based on peg DAC, which is not accurate, but you know what I mean. I'm saying $1,000 worth of DAC to buy one regular unit, and somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000 per unit on a gold foil. That, in my mind, is the line in the sand for success for this card. Now, it could be that there is one person who buys all of them, and still gets us across that finish line, and that's still a success, even though it's not the sort of the depth or the breadth of market interest that we probably really want. And one more thought on that. If I think $1,000 for regular foil represents a victory or like a really, a success in terms of its sale, I would argue $500 to me reflects, per regular foil, reflects lack of interest, lack of perceived utility, lack of whale community. Like $500 to me would be a big loss. Even $700 to me feels like either I'm not understanding the impact and the usefulness of that card, or the community just doesn't agree with me, right? You might disagree with me, and maybe I end up being right, but still, if you're not interested, you're not interested. Whatever the case may be, to me, anything under 1,000 is per regular foil represents lack of interest, lack of perceived functionality, lack of whale community. There's many units that are selling for 700, 600, 500, 400. If that's happening, first of all, I will desperately try to get one. And second of all, I would think it would make sense to cover the content and to do a video around what that would imply about the lack of interest and what that might imply about the lack of investment dollars available, etc. And you would have to weigh that against, like if you're, on the scales of that conversation, you would weigh that against the idea that we recently sold so much from the other rewards, not rewards, the other legends. Long story short, if it comes out hot and they sell for 1,000 and then 2 weeks in they're selling for 800, that tells you that there was 10 people that wanted it, right? If it goes to 50 days and then it starts really dropping off in price point, that tells you 25 to 50 people really wanted it, and maybe they bought more than one copy, but that's it. I expect more consistency. Now, of course, some days there will be, certain whales, interested parties are just going to be away at certain times. They'll be on vacation across a 100-day window. Certain days will sell for cheaper than others, period. My argument for price point is almost mostly out of its scarcity. And now on the issue of scarcity, let's quickly look at that a little bit closer. Alpha, ledge. Let's look at legendary reg foils, alphas. So again, 400 total cards. That's what we're talking about. 400 total cards for the Angel Light Alpha. 1600 BCX. With the Heloise the Hollow, we're going to have 11 BCX times 100. We're going to have 1100 BCX. We're going to have 100 cards. In fact, it's not quite that much, is it? Because it's 11 BCX times 95. And so we're going to have 95 units and 1045 BCX. So our BCX, which is a little bit irrelevant when you really understand that these are max foil and only max foil, it's more about the total units available. There are not 435 cards for Heloise the Hollow. There are 95. 95. That scarcity matters in a big, big way. And in my mind, that's the primary justification for a high price point. You have to believe the game's fun. You have to believe it in the future Splinterlands. And out of that place, you want this super hyper rare scarce asset. Those are alphas. I think we looked at promos. Waka had 500 cards. Zyriel had 1,382. Lux 922. Archmage Arius. Okay, look at that. Okay, Archmage Arius 87. Interesting. Prince Julian is the kid I was talking about. 83 Prince Julians. Okay, so it's not entirely unheard of. 87 on the Shinlo. 89 on the Dricken. Okay, so what about Eleanor? Are there any other cards that might be in that contention? I don't think so. I looked at alphas. The betas will be even more common than the alphas. I just looked at the promos. Those are going to be the ones that, it's not going to be a reward that's scarce. There's not going to be Untamed or Dice that are particularly scarce. Dice was more scarce than Untamed, but it's, 1,100 copies. Not Chaos, not Riftwatcher, not Rebellion. So the most scarce cards in the game, Archmage Ares, Prince Julian, Dricken, and Shinlo. As we look at these price points, 895 for an Archmage Ares. Now that's a summoner. 895 for Prince Julian. That's a summoner. There is only 6 copies of that card. Wow. And the escalation of price point is ludicrous. Like you go from like, maybe I could be willing to buy that to like, this is crazy instantly. But that's what happens though when you have 90 cards that exist in the game, right? There are going to be 1 people or 2 people that are willing to liquidate an asset like that, and most buy it to hold it forever. And when you get that tightening on the reins of access in an ecosystem that is, again, if it's fun and if it has a future, if it's fun and rewarding, and those are questions that you will debate on with me. But if those are your conclusions, that it's fun, it has a future, it's going to be rewarding, and the rewards matter, then you start to get to a place where holding the assets across time makes sense, particularly when it's literally the 5th scarcest object in the game.